He wasn't weak. He was a hunter, a firstborn son, a man who could survive in the wild for days, a man with more physical endurance than almost anyone around him. And he sold his entire future for soup, not metaphorical soup, actual lentil stew. One bowl, one transaction. And in that single moment, Esau exchanged the most valuable thing he would ever own, his birthright, his inheritance, his destiny, for something that was gone in 20 minutes. This is not a Sunday school story about a bad decision. This is one of the most precise psychological case studies ever recorded. Because what happened to Esau is happening to you right now. Not with soup, but the transaction is identical. You already know this feeling. You felt it at 11 p.m. when you told yourself you'd go to bed early, and then you didn't. You felt it in the middle of a diet, or a financial plan, or a creative project that mattered to you. You were doing fine. And then one moment of discomfort arrived, and you made a trade you knew was wrong before you even finished making it. Most of us write that off as weakness, laziness, a character flaw. But what happened to Esau, and what happens to you in those moments, isn't a moral failure. It's a neurological one. And the Bible describes it with a clinical precision that psychology didn't catch up to until the 20th century. In behavioral psychology, there is a phenomenon called hyperbolic discounting. It describes the way our brains evaluate time. When a reward is far in the future, we can reason about it clearly. We can weigh it. We can see its full value. But the closer a reward gets, or the more uncomfortable we are in the present moment, the more our brain distorts the calculation. The future shrinks. The present inflates. And a small, immediate relief begins to feel more valuable than a much larger delayed payoff. This is not a flaw in weak people. It is a feature of every human brain, shaped over hundreds of thousands of years of survival. Esau's story is hyperbolic discounting in its purest form. And the reason it still lives in Scripture is because the people who recorded it recognized something important. This moment keeps happening. It happened to Esau. It happened to Israel. It keeps happening to us. And if we don't understand the mechanism, we will keep losing the same way. Genesis 25. Esau comes in from the field. The text says he was famished. The Hebrew word is more extreme than that. It means depleted, exhausted to the point of collapse. He is not mildly hungry. His body is screaming. Jacob is cooking lentil stew. The smell is there. The bowl is there. And Esau says something that no psychologist could have scripted better. I am about to die. What use is a birthright to me? Notice what just happened. In the grip of temporary physical discomfort, Esau reframed his future as worthless. He didn't say the birthright was bad. He said it was useless to a dead man. He catastrophized. He made his current state, hunger, feel like a permanent existential crisis. This is what chronic stress and physical depletion do to the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for long-term thinking, values, and identity. It is the part that knows who you are trying to become. But it is also the most metabolically expensive region in your brain. When you are depleted, when you are stressed, exhausted, or overwhelmed, the ancient survival system, the amygdala, takes over. It doesn't think about your future. It only asks one question. What removes this discomfort right now? Esau wasn't being irrational. His brain was doing exactly what brains do under threat. The tragedy is that he was not under the threat he thought he was. He was hungry. He was not dying. But his nervous system couldn't tell the difference. And Jacob knew it. Jacob's offer is not spontaneous. He says, "First, sell me your birthright." The word "first" is important. This was a negotiation. Jacob had read his brother's state and calculated the right moment to make the trade. This is also something the psychology of impulse tells us. The environment matters as much as the individual. Esau's failure was not just internal. He was surrounded by someone who had been watching his weak points and waiting. Many of the trades we make happen not because we are uniquely fragile, but because we are depleted in the presence of something specifically designed to exploit that depletion. Esau agrees. He eats. The text gives us one of the most painful sentences in all of Scripture. He ate and drank, and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. He ate, he drank, he left. The stew was gone in minutes. The birthright was gone forever. And the most devastating part of the transaction is recorded in a single phrase. He rose and went his way. There was no ceremony, no grief, no hesitation. He just moved on. That numbness, the way we are able to walk away from a compromised version of ourselves without fully registering what we have surrendered, is one of the most clinically significant features of impulsive decisions. We don't grieve the birthright in the moment of the trade. We grieve it later when the stew is long gone and the consequences have arrived. Here is what this story is actually about. It is not about soup, and it is not really about Esau's hunger. It is about what happens to self-trust when we settle. Every time we make the trade, every time we choose the stew over the birthright, we teach ourselves something. We teach ourselves that we cannot be trusted with discomfort, that our future is negotiable, that who we are becoming is something we will sacrifice when the moment is hard enough. And that lesson compounds. Settling in one area creates a psychological blueprint for settling in others. The person who doom scrolls past their sleep boundary is practicing the same mental move as the person who accepts a career they don't believe in. The stew changes. The transaction is the same. And every completed transaction makes the next one easier. This is why the grief that follows these decisions is so persistent. It isn't just that we lost the birthright. It's that we handed it over ourselves. We can't blame Esau for Jacob's deception later in the story, because Esau already sold what Jacob would eventually take. The what if that follows a surrendered birthright is so heavy not because of what we lost, but because we were the ones who let it go. So what is your stew? It probably doesn't look like a problem. That's the point. The stew is always something small, immediate, and genuinely relieving. It is the scroll that settles the anxiety, the easy path that removes the pressure, the relationship that isn't right but is there, the decision that trades the future for a quiet afternoon. You know the bowl. You've held it before, and the moment it arrives is always the same. You are depleted, the discomfort is real, and your prefrontal cortex is telling you, correctly, that you will survive without it. But the amygdala is louder, and you eat. The difference between you and Esau is not character. It is the gap between the impulse and the action. Esau had no gap. He saw the stew, felt the hunger, and the transaction was complete. The entire practice of long-term thinking is the practice of widening that gap. Not eliminating the hunger is real, but refusing to let the hunger make the decision. The 10-minute rule, the question asked before the trade, what am I actually exchanging here? The practice of voluntary discomfort, doing the hard thing not because it is comfortable, but because each time you do, your brain recalibrates what it can endure. These are not hacks. They are the slow rebuilding of the capacity Esau lost in the field that day. Your birthright is not a theological concept. It is the version of yourself that is worth the hunger. The contribution, the calling, the depth of character that only arrives on the other side of the discomfort you keep trying to escape. It is specific to you, and it cannot be purchased, only protected. Protected in the moments when you are most depleted and the stew is closest. Esau's story doesn't end at the trade. He spends the rest of his life living in the consequence of a decision that lasted 20 minutes. The text says he wept bitterly when the full weight of it arrived. But the blessing had already passed. This is not a story designed to produce guilt. It is a warning, given early enough to change the outcome. The stew will come. The hunger is real. The question is whether you will let a temporary state make a permanent decision. Don't sell what can't be bought back. If this hits something in you, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more biblical psychology, where ancient stories become a mirror for the modern mind. And drop in the comments, what's your stew?